Well, it was the most unpredictable conference last year in college football. It is supposed to be unpredictable again this year. And perhaps the Big 12 coaching rankings are somewhat unpredictable. But there you see at the top, Matt Campbell coming off an 11-3 season last year, tied for first in the Big 12. Some familiar names like Kyle Whittingham at the top. Coach Prime at 7, Mike Gundy at 8, and Rich Rodriguez back in Morgantown down to number 12. And here to break it down as well as some other things going on at Big 12 Media Days. College football analyst Chip Patterson. And Chip, let's start there because, I mean, this was the bizarro world conference. What was up was down, what was down was up. And there you have Arizona State pick last. They win it. Their coach, Coach Dillingham, is not number one. Instead, it's a familiar name from a guy who had great success years ago in Ames and had another good year last year.
Yeah, I think it's Matt Campbell's ability to evolve, to be able to withstand some of the changes in college football where all of a sudden you've got the transfer portal, the NIL era. And after a few sort of shaky seasons, to have Iowa State right back up in the mix, winning double-digit games, playing for the Big 12 title and a chance to get to the college football playoff has kind of reestablished Campbell as one of those coaches. Because after he made the move from Toledo to Iowa State and had a few good years early, we were looking at Matt Campbell as one of the top coaches in the industry, maybe one that could take over the next great job somewhere in the Big Ten. Now he has decided to stay there, and he has doubled down on his belief in five-star hearts and five-star culture, and that even goes to his comments at Big 12 Media Days where he discusses maybe not being as aggressive as other teams in the conference when it comes to spending, but he wants to keep his roster together. He wants to develop, and I think that, in an era where so much has become commodified, a good old-fashioned ball coach kind of warms my heart personally. And as one of the voters, I certainly took that into consideration.
Yeah, we should point out this is a think tank of voters. This is not all on Chip, so don't just send your hate mail to him individually. Let's talk about, again, Coach Dillingham and Kenny Dillingham. He's number 5 on this list. Here's a guy who's in his late 30s. He's only in his third year at Arizona State. If he wins another Big 12 championship, he could easily be at the top.
Yeah, and I think that this is going to be a very important season for Kenny Dillingham because very few coaches, Mike, moved as far year to year in this process than Kenny Dillingham. After last year, he'd only had 1 year as a head coach, and that 1 year was 3-9. But then the very next year, we've got 11 wins, a conference title, and a showing in the college football playoff that included taking Texas all the way to overtime. So, yes, Kenny Dillingham now a lot of confidence in what he can do, but I would also say that now there's expectations. Last year, they were picked 16th in the Big 12 preseason poll. And while the Big 12 did away with the preseason poll, our official, unofficial Cover 3 Big 12 poll has Arizona State at number 1. So can Arizona State perform at the same level now that they are the hunted and not the hunter? There is no greater test for a young coach than expectations, and that's why I think it's very fascinating to look at Dillingham and his stock here, because we might have overshot our rise in terms of where Dillingham lands, or he could show that last year was not an anomaly. It's just what we should expect from the Sun Devils with him at the helm.
One thing that I think most people would agree on, if we can find a consensus in the Big 12, which is nearly impossible to do, is that they've got the best quarterback, the best returning quarterback in Sam Leavitt. And with that being known, where do you have Arizona State coming into this season?
Oh, I've got Arizona State right near the top. I've got Arizona State as my number 1 team, just ahead of Kansas State is my number 2. Utah is my 3, and Baylor is my 4. The Sun Devils, I think that not only with Leavitt, but what they've been able to do in the transfer portal, they lose Cam Scatteraboo to the NFL, but they get Kanye Udo, a very, very good running back from Army, to be able to step into that role. Offensively, they should be very good. And Mike, it's important to remember, Arizona State did not look like a championship contender early in the season. They did not look very impressive against Mississippi State. They only beat Texas State by a single point. They lost to Cincinnati, but it was being able to catch fire late that I think allowed them to be a better team at the end of the year than they were at the beginning of the year. Now the test is going to be, can they get started on the right foot with much different expectations? So I expect Arizona State to be sitting there as the team to beat, my number 1 to start the year. But as you mentioned, last year in the Big 12, Oklahoma State and Utah thought to be the top teams. Neither of them were bowling. Arizona State, the team that won the league, they were picked 16th. So what's up is down. I always like to say this, right? It is my starting point. Arizona State is my number one.
Yeah, it is subject to change. Again, we're only in July. There's certainly room to move up or down once we get closer and closer to opening kickoff. All right, I'm going to try to tie these two coaches together. Don't try this at home. Mike, I'm a man Gundy, who's now actually 57, no longer 40, three-time Big 12 Coach of the Year, and Coach Prime. And you and the think tank have Coach Prime over Mike Gundy. Give us a little justification for that ranking.
Sure, and if I am to go with the broad stroke and speak for everybody who voted, I think Deion Sanders has done a better job of adapting in the modern era. Whether that is communicating your expectations, working the transfer portal, being able to, thrive. And then that is what Colorado did last year. Do not make a mistake. They were a thriving team competing for the Big 12 title, tied for first place in the final Big 12 standings. I think that what the Buffs have been able to do in the modern era in terms of roster building is worthy of giving Deion Sanders a little bump. And at the same time, Mike Gundy, who led Oklahoma State to 18 straight bowl games, had a handful of top 10 finishes, a conference championship, couple conference runner-up. For the first time since 2005, Oklahoma State was not bowling, and they had everything they needed. They had the roster from a group that was the runner-up the previous year, and all we heard was Mike Gundy, tell your agents to stop calling me. It sounds, and especially judging by the transfer portal actions that we have seen since that, it sounds like Oklahoma State's just not really on the front foot in terms of the modern roster building situation. So while Mike Gundy clearly laps Deion Sanders when it comes to track record, when it comes to sustained success over long periods of time at one school, some of this, it does have to be a little bit of present, in the now, forward thinking. Deion Sanders has done a little bit of better job when it comes to working the portal to build a roster that is going to be competitive in the Big 12, because Oklahoma State 0-9 in the Big 12 last year.
Yeah, certainly a lot of justification there. I do think it'll be fascinating. Deion this year, no Shedeur Sanders, no Travis Hunter, the Heisman Trophy winner. I mean, he went in almost every Big 12 game with what most people consider the top two players in the league. They're gone. Some extra coaching going to have to be done in 2025 for Coach Prime. There was a time where Rich Rodriguez, we don't have to be that old to remember when Rich Rodriguez's name was listed amongst the top coaches in college football, actually turned down the Alabama job, nearly took West Virginia to a national championship game. Now he's back in Morgantown, and this list has Rich Rod at number 12. Can he get back up to that upper tier?
Oh, 100%. And I think that even what we've seen from him at the college level at Jacksonville State is worth taking into consideration in terms of the outlook. I mean, he just won 2 conference titles with the Gamecocks, one of them in the Atlantic Sun, one of them last year in Conference USA, 27 wins in total across the 3 seasons. West Virginia is going to see Rich Rodriguez and see the style of football that he's playing, and it will feel incredibly familiar. But the thing that West Virginia fans should be looking at is actually Indiana. And here's what I mean by that, because when Curt Cignetti arrived at Indiana, he brought with him coaches from James Madison. He brought with him players from James Madison. And what Rich Rodriguez is bringing to West Virginia, coaches that were with him at Jacksonville State, and yes, players that were with him at Jacksonville State too. There is not a transfer portal class in the country that is more robust than what West Virginia has. Getting everybody on the same page, being able to survive the adversity and the ups and downs of the season will be one of the greatest challenges of Rich Rodriguez's coaching career. But I do think that if everything clicks into place, there's more continuity than you might realize. And that's why I'm pretty bullish on Rich Rodriguez's chance to be able to elevate his status in the coach rankings.
It's great to have him back in Morgantown.
I agree.
It just feels right. Chip, your segments always feel right. Really appreciate the time. And, of course, you can catch more of Chip on the Cover 3 podcast, CBS Sports podcast. Check it out now.